Hail, daughter of hatred.
Oh! Hey guys, how's it going? Chris here, and welcome to another Filmmaker Reacts episode, the series where we take a look at awesome cinematics. In part 1 I react to them, and in part 2 we dive in to have an awesome discussion about the filmmaking techniques used, as well as some visual effects that we can probably pull from them and do in real life. Now today, based on your recommendations guys, you really want me to react to this lovely lady over here in Diablo 4 cinematic, and from what I can tell from the wallpaper that I found, it's that it's gonna be full of jokes, isn't it? We're gonna have a blast, yeah? Cool. And let me know what your favorite part from the cinematics was, and of course, do subscribe for what comes next. Filmmaker Reacts episodes come out every week, basically. Now, my job is to be a freelance filmmaker, either working on commercial projects, novelty projects here on YouTube, as well as teaching you guys awesome tutorials, how to do some of those super cool things yourselves. Now, I will have some links in the description. Do check them out, guys. And of course, let me know what trailer you think we should react next. And with that said, let's open our favorite page on YouTube. Not this one. And there we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And play. We're all adults here. Ooh. Funny.
Blessed art, my eternal light protects me. Thy divine wisdom guides me.
Quiet.
My father's wrought of darkness.
Shut up.
What is that? Oh, okay.
They have us sent. Run!
Nice. Entertainment presents.
Just keep running. Are you out of your mind? He's not going to make it.
Most of them are not gonna make it.
Blessed Akarat, my eternal light protects me. Thy divine wisdom guides
Look at me. All the gold we want is right there.
No, I just came here for knowledge.
Golem.
I know. Now, breach the seal. Get us through that door.
Oh, light help me. By 3 they come. By 3 thy way opens. Blood show. This doesn't make any sense.
Ooh. Nice.
Blood is the key. Blood is the key!
What?
I need 2 of you!
No! Go! I'll hold them! Go!
So, it says the blood of the willing goes...
You gotta be kidding me!
That's not good, mate.
It worked!
What about the other guy?
We have to help him!
He's dead already.
Lovely team.
It's a shame he didn't make it. Oh well, cheer up. Gold splits better 3 ways instead of 4.
Yeah.
It must be hidden here somewhere. Read this.
Damn. So he's like a priest something, or like... I bet the other guys are gonna die, because they're a-holes.
Opens by the blood of the willing. Hail.
Damn.
Hail the creator. Huh. Hail the daughter of...
Evil.
Oh, no.
What about the coin? What's it say?
This is forbidden. This is a summoning. I cannot speak.
Don't lie to me! We came here for treasure. What is this place?
I don't know. Maybe it's a temple. Or a tomb, or...
It's a gate.
Here we go. Oh.
Love is the key.
Honey, I'm home.
Listen, I cried. The eternal life protects me. The divine wisdom guides me. Though my path is water darkness, guide my soul to thy sacred release.
From the abyss,
Oh!
we see thy salvation. By three they come.
Oh, that is so cool though.
Way
He creates the seal.
blood of the willing. We call thee home.
Oh. Oh.
Come,
I don't feel so good.
Listen, Emperor. The eternal life protects me. The divine wisdom guides me. Though my path is
open
water
your eyes.
Eternal life protects me. Eternal life protects me. Eternal life protects me. Eternal life protects me. Eternal
There
life.
is no light here. You came to the
That is
darkness.
a cool effect,
for
mate.
knowledge.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes.
And all the knowledge you seek is here. Surrender. Speak the words. Call her home.
Ooh, I like how they cut the music.
By three.
And now it comes back up. Nice.
By three.
Oh.
Thy way opens. By the blood of the willing,
I mean,
we call thee home.
oh.
Hail, daughter of hatred,
Oh.
creator of sanctuary.
Oh.
Hail,
Nice.
Lilith.
Oh. Oh, that is gorgeous though. Oh.
Blessed Mother.
Oh, hello, sexy. She's massive. You guys were right. A lot of you requested me to watch this, and now I know why. You guys were spot freaking on. This was sick. Like, I'm kind of like shocked. Like, it was 10 out of 10, really. Holy, I mean, I have to be honest, I love games. I'm a gamer myself, but I haven't played the Diablo games. Forgive me. But I'm so excited that I watched this and you guys recommended it. So good job, guys. Good job. Let me know what comes next, because that was awesome. So, okay, just put full screen, go back a tiny bit. Awesome. So, I love opening scenes because a job of the opening scene is to put you right into the world and give you context even from the first frame. Basically, here they do the technique where they're simply fading in the shot and the sound fades in as well. But usually you open with a landscape shot or hence an establishing shot to give a large perspective to the viewer and then constantly go tighter in to what the focal point is. So here we open with a field, but we have a very cool cross type thing. We can see we're in misty mountains and everything looks quite gritty, like there's not much life going on. Like there's a bit of a river, but it looks very like low key, and the grass here is pretty much dead because of the winter, I'm guessing. So that is pretty cool. And as we move along, we're gonna tighter in. That got me actually when we were watching it. Usually when you cut, there must be a reason for cutting, right? Because if you don't just cut if you cut without a reason, it's not as good of a transition to the viewer. So usually you have two options. Either you would cut because something within the scene has an action in frame and you can link it between the two shots. For example, let's say I throw an axe or a punch. The next scene is gonna start from the impact of the punch and move along. So that is case number one. Or here, when you have to cut because nothing really is happening within the frame, we actually saw this on The Last of Us cinematic as well, you have to cut using sound. When there is an impact of sound or the melody of the music, cut to the beat. So this is what they've done here, and of course because this is kind of a scary genre, I mean it is scary. As a genre, they use the sound to also, like, you know, give you a good scare here and there, so you know what's coming. Love the sound design, by the way, the wind and the church, because think about it. It's funny because they are digging, but the hit at first almost sounded like a church's bell, which was really cool, because at first I was like, how? The church is obviously not operational, so why can't we hear the bell? So that was cool. Again, very gritty, everything is dead, rotten to hell, basically. And we're gonna move in the church. Here, they bleed in the sound of the characters before we see the characters. Many times when it comes to sounds, it's so interesting, guys, when it comes to filmmaking, is that you do not have to show what is heard. But when you use sound, before anything is seen, it prepares the viewer, because us as the audience are so smart, we've been watching these things for so long that we anticipate, and based on the sound we start building up the visuals that's going to come after. So here we can hear a guy. I love this shot, man. How the light comes in and then we just go directly into darkness. Like it shows you like going downwards and downwards, and they show this visually with the art style of placing the light. And I love that. I'm curious because when you use bird's eye views, it's usually for a specific reason, but here I'm wondering why they did not take us through the door, because we would come from something that's very light into a dark kind of church. So I would think that would be a cool shot if we wanted to feel like we are walking into something. Because when you have a bird's eye view, it kind of gives you like a very strategic overhead outlook of what's happening.
A divine wisdom guides.
Quiet.
My path is rocky path.
Shut up.
Very cool. And now we can hear monsters as well, and we can see a very nice hole in the ground under a church. So what can go wrong, right?
They have our scent. Run!
Nice. That was an epic transition into the darkness, and now the title's gonna hit. Excellent way of... I really don't like... I like when titles are incorporated in the right spot, or like presented by, you know, things like that. Because when you just have an opening scene and then the title just comes, it's kind of like not as like epic. I tried to do the same in the God of War Rise of the Sun title, because it took a while for the title to come up, and but I really felt that that was the right moment to hit the audience with the title. Nice. It's funny, if you notice, we cut from an overhead shot above the church or inside the church to an overhead shot as we go downwards. This is very interesting. This is a nice way to link shots when you have the same perspective between something that went before to something you transition to, but not always has to be the case, but here it's just something I noticed. Now we go very high octane on action and adrenaline. We can see they're chased. The sound again that they use lets us know that they're basically hunted and they're in extreme disarray.
Just keep running.
They keep
Are you
running.
out of your mind? He's not going to make it.
Here, that's very interesting. We're basically through dialogue, we get a very tiny glimpse of each of the characters' traits, even though they're not much. Basically, you know, every man for themselves, leave the other guy, don't care, move on, money.
He has to.
Blessed Akarat, my eternal life protects me. The divine.
It doesn't. I like this effect. Do you see how like it crumbles between frames? Like there is a disorientation happening. You can actually do this within After Effects, and what you will do is you will duplicate your layer. You will change the timing to have a few frames, 2, 3, depending on how much shifting you want it to have, and then you will drop the opacity of the top layer to 50%. This way, the two overplay between each other, and if you have a simple scene of a movement, then what's gonna happen to the hand is gonna be this. So, some cool things to keep in mind.
Look at me! All the gold we want is right there.
Yeah. And also, if you can incorporate, I'm not sure if you guys know, we're going a bit technical here. There is a wiggle expression that you can play with movement within the frame, right? So you can put artificial camera movement in your layer. Now, if you put wiggle expressions in both of your layers, but they're different, they're also gonna interplay between each other, but not perfectly. So it's gonna create that wiggle movement. And because of the transparency play that we did before, they're gonna play in a wobbly way when they interact with each other. Nice.
Go!
So, it says the blood of the willing goes...
Okay, now I get it. You know what? I was interested before when at the end the guy was telling him, you know, like, surrender. And I was like, yeah, but the other two did not surrender. But here, where the needle is, and it says the blood of the willing, if you do it, you did it willingly. Therefore, it was already done.
You gotta be kidding me!
Oh no! Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Oh. Oh man, I love this. That is so cool. Oh. Sugoi. I love force. Oh, okay, let's go frame by frame, because this is really cool how it's done. So we have a bubble of distortion flaring out, and then we have quite a lot of dust particles. You can do this within After Effects, playing with distortion waves and masking and making a shape of the distortion map to expand, and then using a lot of bulge effects probably as well. You guys might have seen this technique used in the Harry Potter spell tutorial. It's kind of like you distort the center of the frame and make it go like wobbly. That's pretty cool. And with some dust effects, I'm sure we can pull this off. That is really cool. Let me guys know what your favorite effects from this trailer is to maybe try to pull off in real life.
It worked!
Really cool. I've talked about this a lot. But the contrast between color and the contrast between light and shadow. Now, of course, here we have a highly contrasted scene because it's darkness and we have the fire illuminating the scene. Even though we do have some ambient light, which I'm wondering where it comes from always when something is underground. But the cool thing is when you play with contrast of color, and you guys have pointed out in other Filmmaker Reacts episode how I use something here which is reddish and I have the blue tone reflecting as an edge light. We can see the same things going on where we have a very bluish hue except from the warmth that comes from the fire, and when Lilith comes in, how she's so vibrant red and everything around her is very teal and cold. So cold and warm together create an awesome contrast of color. So he notices the thing.
Willing.
That is so cool, man.
Hail the creator.
In terms of camera
Hail
movement, if I go a few steps back, here it's used to give the viewer the perspective of those guys. So here we do not cut to a very outside scene, let's say, from the edges to look them from afar and look. Now with them, as if we're standing behind this guy, as he's gonna do this, the camera does this as well. And we as the viewer feel as we're in the center now with them, like when I was talking the opposite when it was to the church, and we look up as well. So the camera simulates what our heads and eyes would see when we do this. It does all the way back down.
Hail the creator. Hail the daughter of... Oh no. No.
What about the coin? What's it say?
Don't speak! Don't lie to me! I don't know more!
That's really cool. Nice. Oh man, that freaked me out. This. Oh god. You can actually do this, believe it or not, within After Effects if you have a very good green screen, right? And you can have your actor just act in the green screen. Then with the puppet tool, you can create joints within After Effects and then bend them. And if you do it very rapidly, it's gonna look like it's bending, right? And because he's illuminating from the back, he's mostly very shadowy, like he's very dark, so you can't see many details. So when you do this, it's actually, I think it's gonna look really good. And of course, sound is key to make something sound as if it breaks.
Love is the key.
Let me see how that was done, guys. That was really good, actually.
Love.
Like, we can't see anything behind him, and then as he turns slightly... Oh, man. Okay, this you can do in camera using a large focal length, let's say 50 plus, right? The lenses have the effect of compressing space. If you use a wide angle, things elongate. When you use telephoto, things compress. So basically, using a 50 here, if you can hide someone behind him because the space is compressed and the guy is hidden behind him because of the effect of the lens. So moving them perfectly in sync between the camera movement and the actors, you can have this. And of course, sound design drops in and kind of kicks us in place. Okay. Man. Super cool. A way that I would try to get around the fact that if, depending on perspective, you would have to use 3D, like Cinema 4D or 3ds Max to simulate the ground. If you do an overhead shot right? Like the drone shot, the bird's eye view that we talked about, to show the ground moving, you can actually get away with 2D elements blended in with the ground and make kind of like bevel and emboss effects to make it look as if it's actually carved. And then by rotating them and using live dust assets and things like that, but only showing it from the bird's eye perspective view, which is super cool, you can get away without having to tilt shift and have actual depth of the ground moving. Something to, I think it's cool actually. So the thing goes on. Oh man, that is freaky AF. Okay, artistically wise, this is like amazing, spot on. I don't know who the artists behind this, guys. Amazing work. Like, it's disgusting, as it should be, because hell and stuff like that, but man, if that was not clever, like the perspective of the ground symbol and then the symbol being created by their own blood, and it will be the gateway. Oh man, I love this thing.
By three they come.
This is a simulation, by the way. You have to use fluid simulation and then compose it in. Oh, that is cool. Let's go back here. So he turns to the actual guy. This effect, it kind of reminds me. Do you guys remember the Matrix? Of course you do. Where in the first one, Neo was on top of the roof and he dodged the bullets, but then when he shoot the guy or something, the Smith agent went like that. The tricky thing about those is, if you see the lower body stays perfectly still, almost, and then the other faces and other stuff go by. I think you can do this by actually having a tripod shot, having your character stand still. He will perform the main move of like, and I will, blah blah blah, and then as he's not moving and the camera's not moving as well, he will do, by trying to keep his core static, and he will do this, and then with the same layer technique and of course blur effects and diffractions, you will compose all those different iterations in, and then if you want the camera movement, you will just simulate a very small, just like they do here, even though this is CGI, camera movement to also incorporate some natural movement while this is happening. And I think that's, you can pull it off that way. See, it's just a zoom. Nice.
Call thee home.
Again, contrast in color. Look how bluish this is and how nice and popping the blood is.
Come.
That is cool.
Open your.
Usually how they do it in big budget, you will have cables being suspended by the actor's waist so that he will be lifted, or she will be lifted, and then with a green screen. But that takes a lot of equipment, a lot of money. A way that you can kind of do this, I wonder, it's always cool to think outside the box and kind of play with perspective. So if I go by here, wait, go back. Go back! Where was it? Here. So, here's an idea. What if you have a green screen and you use a stool and you have your actor lay back to be horizontal somewhat, so the stool will be where his back is to support him, right? Or two stools, maybe one behind his shoulders and one in his legs area, so it's not as tiring. So that way he has freedom to move his head and his legs individual as if he's floating, and then by taking that layer and matching the light, of course, you rotate it 90 degrees, then you have a standing performance than a laying one. By having a green screen, then you will map out and you will remove the stools, and then you will have a guy floating in space. A bit tricky to pull off, obviously. It's having to do things in a different way to achieve the same effect and not going the easy route because money. But I think it might be done as well.
Open your eyes.
I love this effect. I don't know how good you guys can tell, but we have a very tight shot, right? Like 80 mil just the eyes. And as you guys know, I love eye effects, whether it is anime based, fantasy based, any kind of eye effects, I'm like all for it. The cool thing is, we're so tight in his eye that technically this can be considered realistic. Like, you will see the refraction of the eye and the reflection within the iris. Now the way that you do this is actually really cool. So you need a very long lens because you need to have the camera far away from the eye to not have any natural real life reflections, so the eye is just plain. And then you will shoot the other actor, and then you will distort the layer to make it bulge out using a bulge effect, and then you will compose it within the iris. Isn't that awesome? That is so cool. We should definitely do that.
Eternal light protects me. Eternal light protects me. Eternal light protects me. Eternal light
There's no light
There's no
here.
light.
You can't get darker than this. Look how desaturated his skin color is. He's basically dead white. And his eyes do not even have an iris. The entire eye is black, but they didn't just leave it black. They gave him the same reflection of the guy reflecting, but in the entire eye. Same techniques, just put it on the entire eye. That's really cool. And here he's like, I'm screwed anyway, so yeah, let's just join them. Cool. So he accepts, he goes back up, we have the blood spilling out, completing the circle. Overhead shot through the portal. Oh, man. Now that the light comes somewhat from on top, is obscured by all this blood skin portal thing, and now everything becomes bloody hued. Man, again, it's so creative and so smart how they did the gate thing. Like, it's like almost birth-like, but it is disgusting, by the way. But it's so well made. So she comes in, we have the face, the hand. I love this scene, how almost the blood creates petals across space, because it's actually kind of gorgeous in a EU way, if that makes any sense. And you have the hands welcoming.
Lilith.
Blood goes away. The eye. By not showing the entire body and just showing a hand, a leg, parts of the face maybe, you build tension and for what's coming. And it's very funny how much light they use in a very dark theme. I love the translucent skin.
Blessed.
The perspective of a character looking up just makes him look very small, very weak, and basically he's just looking at something very powerful. And then you switch the perspective of us looking from down up, so we feel like him, and looking at someone from a very low angle because of power.
Mother.
See?
Save us.
And that's just like, ho ho ho! Nice. That is a masterpiece, man. Oh my god. Look at the design, like the gate became her cape in some sort of way. Spot on, man. Spot on. I freaking loved it. I love doing this game cinematic breakdowns because games have come a long way in storytelling and promotional materials, and they use some amazing talent to make these things, and it's just so awesome to share them with you guys and have a cool discussion about it, guys. So let me know in the comment section what your favorite scene was, what your favorite part, what should come up next, and anything else basically. I love doing this things, they're a blast. So until the next one, guys, stay awesome, stay creative, and I'll catch you next time.